How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Three Drams for February. My name is Barry Chandler. I'm your host for this session and every session, whether you like it or not. You're all very welcome to another great session where we're going to sample three whiskies. We're going to learn from the people who make the whiskies, and they're going to take your questions. And we get to learn about the whiskies together, expand our knowledge, and expand our palates. And as always, the goal here is to try whiskies before you might have to have the full outlay of a bottle. Get to try something in miniature size and decide what we like and what we don't like. For those of you who are new here, there's no pressure to do anything, ask anything. If you want to, by all means, engage in the comments, and we'll put your questions to the makers as we can. Those questions that we don't get to them in the first portion of the evening, we'll get to after our makers leave us once we've got through our three whiskies. It's very informal. Whiskey's not supposed to be pretentious. There's no rules. It's just about finding what you like. You're not obliged to like all the three whiskies. You're not obliged to like any of them, but it's always helpful to learn why you do or don't like a certain thing and to take notes as to what stands out to you. And going forward, then you might start to develop an idea of the whiskies that you like. And that's what we're here for. So you're very welcome to Three Drams. Shortly, we'll get started on our first whiskey. How we do it in terms of the structure of the evening, it's very simple. 20 minutes per whiskey. Pour the three whiskies or half of each bottle into a glass. If you have three glasses, just let them breathe in front of you. If you have a few drops of water to hand, that'll always be helpful as well to open up your whiskies a little bit once you've maybe tried them neat first. And we'll work our way through each whiskey. We'll be starting tonight with Gift of the Gab Irish whiskey. Then we'll move on to Clancolla 9-year-old whiskey from the Haskell Distillery. And then we will have the Maple Cask Single Malt from Garden County Distillery to round out our evening. So moving left to right along the tasting notes and the tasting map that's in your tasting kit that hopefully arrived at your doorstep. Just calling out some of the locations you're joining us from. We've got folks here from, let me see, Armagh, we've got Connecticut, we've got Berlin, we've got Athy, Kentucky, Knocklion, Crosshaven, County Down, Limerick, Cork. You're all very welcome, and let us know where you are in the comments. And I see great chats always happen in the comments between folks who realize, oh, somebody is where I'm going, or I didn't know there was somebody else from Three Drams in my town. So have a chat amongst yourselves there. Before we get into the first of our whiskies tonight, just what we'll also do tonight is I'll share with you the three whiskies that are coming in March. We already have them locked in. We'll also share some discounts for some of our whiskies from tonight with you at the end of the evening. You'll get an email with all these things again tomorrow. And if you have any questions anytime, any of these things, just throw them into the chat and I'll keep a close eye on the chat. We have had, over the past couple of months, we've had some technical challenges on our logistics side with shipping and with subscriptions. And I want to address that, just take a minute to address it. We have a site that has probably expanded and gone beyond its original use in terms of size. And when I took over the site in March last year, there were far fewer subscribers than there are today. And when we took it over, we didn't realize that there were a lot of old pieces of technology that slowly kind of deprecated and just failed over the last couple of months. And it's caused a few of you to get your kits late, or some of you didn't get your subscription renewed, like a handful of you. And it's caused a problem for us in the back end. We didn't realize that there were such tech issues until enough of you were saying, hold on a second, I'm supposed to get a kit, or I was supposed to be charged. I wasn't. And we didn't know of these problems. So to address that, we've hired a full-time developer who's working now on rebuilding the entire back end of the site. It might seem like a fairly simple thing to get. You pay for a kit, you should get a kit. Our challenge in the back end is we have about a dozen different subscription types, some of them going back many, many years. And the ability to manage those subscriptions, like some people pause, some people cancel, some people renew, some people join, the dates they join, when the bottles are filled versus when people's subscription comes in. And it's a really complicated back end to the site. We're working on it full time now. In February, January was a challenge for us. February, this month, we got a little bit better, and we hope by March to have everything solved. So I appreciate your patience. If anyone has any issues that are, like, you are so unhappy that you didn't get a kit, just send me a note. I'll send your money back. We will refund you. You won't be out of pocket for something we didn't do. But I hold my hand up and say, we didn't know of these challenges until suddenly they kind of hit us fairly hard. So we're working on those now. So that's on us. But do send an email to me directly if you have an issue. I will solve it. You'll get a kit, you'll get your money back, whatever it takes. I don't want you to be unhappy, but that is a challenge over the last few months. But we're working on that now. That being said, we've got whiskey, three great whiskies to go through tonight. We're going to start with Gift of the Gab this evening. Gift of the Gab is a unique Irish whiskey in that it was started by two young lads from Cork, not long out of college, who decided that they wanted to launch their own whiskey. And I think that's quite a brave move, and anyone who's in the whiskey industry will agree that's a brave thing to do. But Patrick Crowley and Alex Moynihan from Blarney in Cork had this idea as part of a college project a few years ago, and they went forward with it once they graduated and decided to bring this whiskey to market called Gift of the Gab Irish Whiskey. It's the first whiskey you have in your tasting kit. Now, Alex and Patrick are traveling through Brazil at the moment in the deepest, darkest rainforest, I think. I managed to catch up with Alex yesterday and actually get a recording of a chat with him. So what we'll do is for this portion, for the first few minutes, we'll just play for you the chat introducing you to Alex from Gift of the Gab to tell you the story of the whiskey. Feel free to open it. We'll taste it. I have it here in my glass. We'll taste it together after the chat is over. But pour yourself a drop. As he's talking, by all means, have a nose of a taste. Share your notes. We'll taste it together once the video is over as well. But here's a video from my chat yesterday with Alex Moynihan, co-founder of Gift of the Gab Irish Whiskey. Tell me, how did you get into the world of whiskey, and is your background in anything to do with that?
No, it wouldn't be. No, I suppose myself and Patrick, I suppose, we're both kind of from entrepreneurial kind of business backgrounds, really. So it's kind of the idea all kind of started when Patrick was doing a project around distilleries back in college. So the idea was kind of floated then about possibly doing a whiskey that would kind of represent where we're from, which was Blarney. So that idea kind of grew arms and legs. So it all started with actually with gin initially. So we quickly pivoted into the whiskey kind of side of things once we acquired a bit of a taste for it, and kind of just looking at the overall market for Irish whiskey and kind of the potential there for us. So it kind of grew on from there, really. So we initially we started trying to distill ourselves, but we kind of quickly knew that wasn't going to be feasible. So I suppose everything kind of that we put into it is all organic. It's kind of, it's all from ourselves. So we eventually then we went through Lighthouse, so kind of a contract manufacturing agreement there. Kind of ended up tasting different samples, I suppose. And what we were kind of looking for from the whiskey that we had tasted, I suppose, from us not being connoisseurs really as such, was to get a whiskey that was kind of smooth, easier to drink, but still had a nice taste and quality to it that kind of made it a bit premium. So that's kind of where we landed then in the finished product that we have now.
I think people will be surprised to know that there's a way to launch a whiskey without having a distillery, but working through somebody like Lighthouse Drinks that can point you in the right direction, or it can be the one-stop shop for, right, here's the bottles we've available, here's the caps, here's the distilleries we can work with. Did that probably shortens the cycle to get something to market for you?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I suppose like the capital investment you need just from even starting a distillery, even a micro distillery, is kind of, it's fairly big, so two lads out of college that were just kind of, I suppose I'd be in accounting, and Patrick is kind of on the financial side as well. So I suppose we kind of had good jobs, but it was kind of just kind of pooling a bit of cash together to kind of start it up. We knew we kind of needed to go somewhere where it was all kind of outsourced. So in fairness, Lighthouse were brilliant in that regard, and helping build us up to eventually launch there last August.
What was the sampling like when you got samples to evaluate? How did you go about deciding or eliminating along the way?
Yeah, I suppose it was kind of, we would have had someone that we knew that would be very into their whiskey. So Cullum from Costigan's Pub of Cork, he would have helped us as well. So we kind of got to tasting the different samples that we had, and speaking to Lighthouse too. I suppose you kind of leverage on their vast experience there as well, and kind of telling them what you want, kind of where you're kind of where the vision is for the final product. So like I said, what we were kind of looking for was something that was smooth anyway. I think that was our main kind of I suppose in terms of the quality, that's really what we wanted, to kind of just a smooth taste from the whiskey. So that kind of pushed us down the direction then of kind of eliminating anything that would kind of leave a small bit of a burn or a tingle in the throat. So that kind of what presented itself then was a bit of a rum finish to kind of complement kind of the oak and the ex bourbon that we had tasted previously, and that eventually led then to our final product. So I suppose there was a bit of eliminating, and we were kind of lucky. We got to it early on, and once we kind of gave it to Cullum as well, he was very happy with it, and we went from there.
What was the timeline like from having the mad idea to figuring out there was actually a place you'd go to figure it out and help you to getting a bottle in your hands?
Oh, geez, yeah. I mean, it wasn't easy at all. I suppose you're kind of learning as you go. We started off with the idea, I would say 3 years ago, maybe four. And then kind of acting on it then would kind of took another kind of year, maybe, I suppose. And then from that, then you're kind of like you're looking at setting up the company itself. Kind of we went about then getting a still and all that, and kind of looking up how we could possibly do it. We're looking into different courses we could do. To kind of get a license to build the whiskey, and then eventually we actually came across Blackwater, who were doing it for gin. They were contract manufacturing for gin. So we were going to go down that route initially, but like I said, kind of pivoted to the whiskey then. So ended up kind of finding out about Lighthouse then through our LEO representative. So we had a couple of calls with them just to kind of help kind of guide us through the field, really. So that was a huge help as well. So like for anyone that would be starting, I would definitely kind of say kind of leverage anything you have, and information is power, especially from people who are kind of experienced, not just within that actual sector, but I suppose people that would have connections to, you know, directors or CEOs or whatever. And like we would have had contact with Colin Ross as well from Kinsale, who would have kind of helped us to kind of guide us. So we were lucky in the contacts that we had, but we kind of had to leverage it and then kind of learn from the kind of quickly from the mistakes. And then eventually, it got to about 2024 then, by the time we had a trademarked, and we're right looking right, we're ready to go here. So then over the next year, then it was kind of all about design and getting the label right. And that took us then to eventually kind of launching it then in August.
How important was it then that Blarney was central to the branding, seeing as that's where you're from?
I suppose it started off with the idea of it kind of being centered towards Blarney, and then we kind of thought, right, let's kind of let's mix in all of Irish culture itself. So I suppose like with Blarney, I suppose like you kind of make the assumption yourself to the gift of the gab and all that, but like the gift of the gab kind of also ties to Irish culture as well. Like I suppose yourself with stories and sips, it's sitting down, whether it is a pint or it's a drop of whiskey, it's telling stories and chatting. You know, that's what we were trying to incorporate into gift of the gab as well. So it wasn't, I suppose, just about Blarney. It was kind of Irish culture too, and like telling stories, and just kind of grasping just the old kind of Irish ethos, I suppose, and that kind of ties into Blarney then as well. So it's a kind of a nice kind of connection there.
Great to see it behind the bar in Blarney too, in Muskerry and in Johnny's
Yeah.
as well. You see it there. What was it like getting the product in your hand then for the first time, bottled, labeled, your product, like your baby?
Relief. We couldn't wait to couldn't wait to pop it open and taste it. But geez, it was relief and pride really, like, because it's just, I suppose, the amount of time that goes into it, and it's a lot of weight as well. You know, when you're going through trademarks and you're waiting for like X to happen, or this person to get back to you, or see if like this is going to go through, or you know, it's the kind of time that kills you really, and you definitely need patience to kind of get it over the line 100%. So like once we had the bottle in our hands, it was a big relief, and yeah, we drank it away with the rest of Blarney in the launch night anyway.
Fair play. I saw the pictures. Looked like a great celebration. All right.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
What's your plans then going forward? Is this a one-time thing that you did? Will you release more? Will you sell this first and worry about that next? How do you think about it?
Yeah, so I suppose like where we are now, we have I suppose we have the whiskey bottle labeled and everything. So like where we're looking from here, we're still working on our own jobs too. So what we are looking at the moment, we're setting up tasting experience in the Lemon Tree in the Castle Hotel, which kind of the function room in the Castle
Brilliant.
Hotel. So we're aiming to open that up, and we've kind of agreed it with the Castle Hotel already. So that will open up in the weekends, kind of starting around kind of maybe March, April time. So what we will have is kind of just stories and kind of history of Blarney that isn't just kind of centered towards the castle. I suppose Blarney has a history that's not just tied to the castle. You know, there's obviously there's big connections there, but there's kind of alternative kind of stories of history as well, that we kind of like to share, I suppose, with tourists and anyone else that might be coming in. So we'll have kind of shots of our whiskey inside there that you can taste, and there'll be little shot glasses with engraving of Gift of the Gab Irish whiskey on it that you can take away after your shot. And there'll be cocktails as well. So we've a cocktail that's inspired by the Banshee cocktail. So we've decided to call it the Blarney Banshee. So that would be kind of an old like kind of cocktail, kind of slushy kind of a kit that you could pour yourself. And same with the whiskey, it'll be pour yourself, walk around, kind of read the history of Blarney, have a chat, kind of just soak it in, and then off with you.
That's brilliant. The
Yeah,
experiential side is great. Like you said, leaning into the stories and the gift of the gab is the great connector ultimately, isn't it? Like especially when you're battling for shelf space and you're battling
exactly.
to stand out. How are you going to find a
Yeah.
way to connect with people?
Exactly. Yeah. I suppose that's the challenge. It's kind of like you need quality in the whiskey, but I think once you have a story behind it, like it's hard to get people to buy the whiskey if there's no story behind it,
Yeah, yeah.
regardless of the quality. So that's really what we're kind of trying to drive now, especially with the kind of the Irishness to it. When the kind of local tour or the tourists come in, into into the tasting experience, kind of trying to drive it on, kind of push on the marketing and the social side of it then as well. So that it kind of builds from there. And like I said, it's all organic. We've put everything into it
Yep.
ourselves. It's all our own cash. So we're gonna kind of keep going down that route as long as we can, and then kind of see from there really.
And moving on from the story of it then to the sip itself, and we'll taste it with our group now shortly. But tell us about the whiskey then itself. It's a blended whiskey, and there's some interesting cask components in it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's ex-bourbon, virgin oak, and there's kind of a rum finish to it as well. So I suppose you're getting your spicy oak from your virgin. You're kind of getting your kind of your caramel and your vanilla from your bourbon, or sorry, sorry, from your bourbon. And then the kind of rum finish then is kind of a bit of a molasses and a kind of a tropical note to it, and then that should kind of together that should give it the smoothness then that you'll feel once tasting the whiskey. So that was kind of the main feedback that we would have gotten, is how smooth the whiskey actually is, in terms of the quality of it. And I suppose if you're kind of going to compare it, like I've heard it be compared to a lot of different whiskies. So like I've heard a lot of Japanese whiskies. I can't remember the name of them now, but many Japanese kind of style whiskies. I suppose maybe Bushmills Caribbean maybe might be kind of a similar kind of a taste. Or
Okay.
I've actually heard Black Barrel, Jameson Black Barrel, but without the rum. So
Okay.
I suppose that's up to the tasters to see how they feel about it. But yeah, it should be kind of a nice, sweet, smooth delivery.
It's no small undertaking bringing this to market. Looks like, so kudos for all the effort and trying to figure it out and figuring it out and bringing something to market. Like that's many try, many don't get as far as he did. So to have something in your hands and have something in other people's hands, more importantly, and in their
Yeah.
bellies is a great achievement. So fair play. Like typical Corkman, like you'll find a way, you'll figure it out. Like you'll find a way to do it.
Yeah, we'll drive it on, all right.
Well, thanks a million for joining us, and thanks for including a drop in 3 drams. And if there's anything else we can do to help you out, let us know. We'll, of course, pass along a very generous discount code you've shared as well, so we can have folks buy a bottle if they choose to do so. And if you come out with anything else, let us know. And if people want to visit Blarney and check out a little tasting, keep us posted on the experience, and we'll share that as well.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant, and thanks a million for having us. It's great exposure for us as well, and thanks to your audience. Hopefully, everyone enjoys the whiskey, and I suppose the main place you could reach us is probably on Instagram, maybe.
Okay.
We're on Instagram, Gift of the Gab Irish Whiskey. So, if anyone enjoys it and wants to tag us or anything like that, it would be greatly appreciated. But thanks very
Fair
much.
play. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate you joining us.
All right.
You're a
Cheers.
gent.
Thank you.
There's Alex Moynihan, co-founder of Gift of the Gab Irish Whiskey. And I share some details here. I've got a slide here with details of the whiskey for you to have a look at as well. So this is our first dram tonight, priced at a very reasonable €42. Look, there's great pushback to whiskey pricing in Ireland, and rightfully so in many cases, especially amongst lower price whiskies. The challenge for small businesses is that in an average bottle, like a 40% ABV bottle here of whiskey, where it's a 700 ml bottle, close to half of that amount, €42, would be gone to the government. Maybe close to about 18 or 19 euros would be gone to the government in VAT and excise duty, leaving, the rest has to be divvied up between the producer and the logistics side of things and the retailers, and ultimately they have to make a shilling themselves. But it's not dramatically more expensive than some of the very, very popular blended whiskies you see in the market today. So what I wanted to do with Alex and with Patrick was to showcase and give them a chance to talk to you about their whiskey, which has not been made for 200 years, is something that they had an idea for a couple of years ago. It's not something that has any economies of scale whatsoever. They've learned an awful lot from it. They've probably got grey hairs at a young age from trying to bring whiskey to market. But I wanted to ensure that they also had a seat at the table of talking about a whiskey, just like a much larger distillery that's been around for many, many years, that could be multinationally owned, has a chance to do as well. For me, it's a very easy drinker. It's just a lovely soft whiskey on the nose, getting all those typical characteristics of a soft blended whiskey of vanilla and caramel, those typical kind of wood spice, little soft kind of perfume of wood spice on the nose. And then on the palate, we have a little sip, Sláinte. Little spice there. There's malt and grain. So predominantly grain whiskey, which is made in column stills, malt whiskey made in copper pot stills, blended together. And they've got three different cask components there. They've got the ex-bourbon barrels, which are the most used type of barrel in the world of Irish whiskey. And they've got virgin oak casks as well, American virgin oak cask, which would give an additional contribution of vanilla and some of the sweetness, kind of Werther's Original, maybe a little brown sugar note to the whiskey as well. And then you've got a rum cask finish, which can give you a kind of a sharp sugar kind of a note as well. Again, leaning into that brown sugar kind of muscovado note as well coming through. But lovely, soft, easy drinker. You can sip that after dinner any night of the week. And I think it's a great testament to the two lads that they've managed to bring whiskey to market. And also highlights that there are options for people to have whiskies out on shelves with some work, but they don't need a distillery to do it. And that's been an important part of the growth of Irish whiskey over the last few years. Gwen says, nice to drink. I could see myself ordering a Gift of the Gab whiskey on a night out. There you go. Lovely creamy finish, says Jason. Chris says, saw my TikTok about the amount of tax on whiskey going to the government. Yeah, look, we could be lighting our torches and getting our pitchforks if we stayed on this topic for too long. But we have the second or third highest excise duty rates on spirits in Ireland. So it is very, very challenging for competition and for bringing value to the customer ultimately. And it's why you always get cheaper Irish whiskies overseas than you'll do in Ireland. Even at the distillery shop, it'll be more expensive oftentimes than it will be in Spain. Alan says, good one to convert non-whiskey drinkers. There you go. Mark says, hit the nail on the head. Adrian says, very nice, rounded balance and easy drinker. They've also offered 20% off the €42 there, so it brings that down a little bit more for you. So we'll share the discount codes at the end of the night for you. But I want to thank Alex and Patrick for agreeing to be part of 3 Drams. They only launched this whiskey about 4 or 5 months ago, and I've seen it behind the bar in Blarney and Muskerry Arms and in the Blarney Castle Hotel. And I love their idea of starting a little pop-up in the hotel in Blarney, a great tourist town and a great chance to tell the story of Irish whiskey with having a little whiskey pop-up and something that hasn't been an option in the town at all for the last few years. So kudos to the two lads for releasing Gift of the Gab. So that's our first whiskey of the evening. Great for a beginning whiskey drinker, says Frank. There you go. Perfect. So, as you're sipping on that and finishing that, get your second whiskey ready, because we'll be joined now in the next minute or two by Garrett McAllister, who's the co-founder of Hascra Distillery in East Galway, and he's going to walk us through their Clancolla 9-year-old whiskey, which is whiskey number 2. It's the middle whiskey in your kit, so pour a drop of that. I always say try and keep a drop of your whiskies aside, like leave a drop in the bottle for later, or don't finish your glass. Just leave it, come back to it again later. The whiskey changes, you change. Our palates change over the course of the tasting as we become more acclimatized to whiskey. But we're starting off at 40% ABV. We'll be moving now into 46% for the last 2 whiskies, slightly up in alcohol strength. And again, a few drops of water after you try it neat can often release some more of the volatile compounds trapped beneath the surface of the whiskey that you want to get access to, you want to get to your nose, and you want to get to your tongue. So a few drops of water won't hurt. Chris says, Ash, you'd have to get a bottle to support the lads with 20% off. Isn't that it? You'd have to. It's only morally right. Alcohol and morality. What a night we're having. All right. Let me get my second glass here. We're moving on now to our Clancolla 9-year-old. But before we bring Garrett on, I'm going to play a little introduction to the Clancolla range for you. And then Garrett is going to join us all the way from France, where he's busy flying the flag for Irish whiskey.
Back through the mists of time, long before the Vikings and way before the Anglo-Saxons, 3 brothers, true Gaels, ruled over ancient Ireland. However, in slaying the ruling Ardrí to gain the crown, Culla Uish brought a curse upon his clan, and their descendants would never again occupy the throne. After only 4 years, Culla Uish was deposed, and together with his brothers and clan, they were banished to Scotland. They returned to their native land to establish a new kingdom. But as the curse foretold, the Cullas nor any of their descendants would ever again rule the land of Ireland. The legend of the 3 Cullas as a whiskey brand lives on. Distilled with pride at a Hascra distillery in County Galway.
Garrett McAllister from the Hascra Distillery. Welcome. How are you?
Good, Barry. Hi, how are you? Good evening. Bon nuit from
Bon nuit. This is like the Eurovision, isn't it? How many points are you going to give us?
Is how many points I'm going to get tonight, yeah. Well, we're talking about a French finish, so it was only fitting to be here in France while I'm talking about it. So.
Don't be trying to convince us now you flew to France to talk about a French finish on 3 Drams.
Especially for you on 3 Drams and your community there, yeah.
The gift of the gab is rubbed off on you already.
Yeah, now we've been out here in France the last 2-3 weeks, really touring, and we had wine Paris, and we've been in Switzerland as well. So we're actually heading back tomorrow, which is good. And I only have a little bit left of my tasting bottle for the Clancolla 9-year-old, so I've been saving it for tonight.
We appreciate that. And France, the biggest consumer of Scotch whiskey in the world, is it as a country?
Yeah, I think in Europe, yeah.
Yeah.
But they drink it with Coke. They drink a lot of their whiskey with Coke. So the volume is at the low end. Obviously, we're trying to get in there on the premium side of things.
Yes.
And on this particular Bordeaux finish has actually been doing well for us here.
Tell us a little bit, Garrett, about the distillery. I've got some slides I can share too with some pictures, but for those who may not be familiar with the Hascra and it's their first encounter with Clancolla, you hold a pretty unique position within the world of Irish whiskey. You've carved a unique approach and position. I'd love our audience to learn a little bit more about your distillery.
Yeah, sure. Well, Hascra is a little village in East Galway, just about 10 minutes outside Ballinasloe. Myself, my wife Michelle founded it going back. Well, it was an old mill. That was an old mill back in 2018, and we spent, best part of COVID restoring it. It's a protected structure, so we had to keep it in fitting with the original tradition of the building. And we finally got it fully restored and kitted out with all our state-of-the-art equipment, and we even got the original water wheel back, and we got up and opening in July 2023. So we're actually into our 4th year distilling now, which is it's gone so fast. Time has gone so fast. It's an all electric distillery. It's full. We don't have any oil or gas on site. We don't burn anything in terms of from an energy point of view. We use renewable electricity. We have our own solar on site, and we take in certified onshore wind from Galway. We use very high temperature heat pump technology. It's a very kind of from an energy point of view, very efficient. And I think that's what's that is a first. It's going to be a first for Irish whiskey. The spirit that, we're distilling in Ahaskra, we're on the countdown now. We're going to be launching it early next year, hopefully around this time next year, all going well. And that will be, definitely for Irish whiskey, a world's first. But I think also in the industry, the way we're distilling with sustainability and with a significant reduction in our emissions through Scope 1 to Scope 3, I think that's going to be, I hope, certain markets around the world that will be appealing to.
It's an unbelievable undertaking what you have not just attempted to do, but you've done the most difficult things possible, working with a listed building, not going down the traditional route of energy and fuel sources, and deciding that this was the important thing. Why was this the important thing for you both?
That's us. I mean, we're kind of, the distilling industry, is a very energy intensive business. I'm a chemical engineer, I'm also a distiller, so I built process plants around the world. So, but the distilling industry does use a lot of energy. And when we found the old, and it was actually Michelle who found the old mill, that mill had run completely with renewable hydro energy from a mill race that runs down the middle. You can see the water wheel there. They actually had 2 water wheels, one on each side, and that mill race powered the whole operation for best part of 200 years. So the last thing we were going to do when we took this over was actually going to put in a big oil or gas boiler and start burning stuff. We don't burn anything on site, but if you come into the village of Ahaskra, especially on a cold winter's morning, you'll see everyone around burning turf, which is beautiful smell in the village, and you'll see a circle where there's nothing, and that's where we are. So basically, it was in fitting tradition to the way this mill ran, but also it makes good business sense. The way we've done it, we do realize energy savings. I mean, the cost of energy, and the cost of electricity in Ireland is the highest now in Europe, or the second highest. We got the energy efficiency, and to be able to produce a spirit that not just that it's sustainable, but from a business point of view, that the business is sustainable, and controlling all we can do as distillers and producers control our costs. So it all made perfect sense. We have very strong, core values in sustainability, and we had the opportunity to we're kitting out a building from scratch. That's when you should also consider the kind of technology that we have. It's probably very difficult to do if you're retrofitting an existing operation or existing distillery, but it made perfect sense. And we're into our 4th year now distilling, and we can definitely see the benefit in our operating costs. And that benefit we hope then to pass on to our consumer, because the spirit we're bringing out next year, a Ahaskra spirit, we're going to be offering value, and the innovation is there from the way we're doing it, but there has to be value too for the consumer, especially these days. So it's not going to be a 80, 90 euro bottle when it comes out.
Yeah.
I hope people will appreciate the focus we put into producing this sustainably with innovation, but also as efficient as possible, and that we're going to hopefully pass as much of that on to the consumer as we can. So,
having had a chance to taste some of the whiskies out of the casks, even in the last 6 months, I can attest to the incredible profile that's developing very quickly from the whiskies. And I know you've won awards for your new make spirit, and the whiskey's maturing very nicely.
It is. yeah, and it's the warehouse there, which you were there with the team. I mean, that I call that my happy place. That's where I am constantly, just checking and testing. But so far so good, and we are on track to getting this launched early next year.
Before we talk about this whiskey, just very quickly, it's worth noting as well, you've not just transformed a mill in the village, you have transformed the village from a business standpoint. You've opened up the gift shop across the road and the cafe. You've opened up a restaurant here to Clancolla, which is serving beautiful food. You're very quickly, despite being blow-ins, you're very quickly being adopted by the village and doing a lot for it.
We've had great support from the village. We're blow-ins, we're dubs, and we don't we don't kind of defend it otherwise or say it otherwise. But yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense, and we're trying to bring life back to bring to this old mill, bring life back. That mill was the centre of commerce for 200 odd years, and it fed a lot of the bakeries in East Galway for that length of time. And Hastra was a very big place. It had at one stage over 1,000 people. It's down to about 200 people now. But it was a very important village at the time. And it's good that, our goal is to bring back the mill, which we've done. But now people want to come and visit us. And we want to be a destination distillery. So you do have to provide a visitor centre. You do have to provide a cafe, a restaurant, because we want people to enjoy our spirits, but we also want them to be, have some food and enjoy, East Galway cuisine as well, which is what we're trying to do. So it's if people are, passing Ballinasloe, we're just 10 minutes from Ballinasloe, do come and have a look. We have tours. Well, when the season's starting actually in March, we have tours every day. We're open 7 days a week for the season, so it's a good place to stop off if you're on your way back to Dublin from Galway or on your way to Galway. It's a good place to stop off. And we have everything there for you. I hope you'll enjoy it.
I can attest to that, having crashed in through the doors a few times to experience the hospitality. It's all there, and in spades. Should we talk a little bit about this lovely whiskey you've allowed us to try tonight? This is the Clancolla 9-year-old.
Sure.
And we'll defer to you a little bit on this, Garrett. You've been talking about this for non-stop for the last few weeks. You say you're sick of talking about it, but we'll put you on the spot again.
No, I mean, well, you've seen the story of the Clancolla. I mean, the Clancolla, we call the Clancolla series our family bond. So that's just basically, it's source liquid. And we are trying to be, authentic, and that the spirit that comes out from a Hastra will be branded differently. It'll look different, but we'll always have Clancolla, because Clancolla is, it's mainly blends, but it's done. They're blends done in innovative ways, and they're predominantly age statements. So this is a 95.5 grain malt from Cooley, actually 2015, and it has spent about 3.5 years ago. We blended it, both ex-bourbon obviously for the grain and for the malt, and we sourced casks from Bordeaux. It's a kind of a winery which Michelle and I have visited, and we actually it's hard. It's really hard work. You have to go to Bordeaux and you have to actually pick out your casks, and you have to talk. You have to ask them about the history of the cask. And we did that, and we came across this Chateau Rochebelle. It's a Grand Cru. It's Saint-Emilion region. It's a Grand Cru Class A. French red wine, which we love. It's 85% Merlot, 15% Cabernet Franc, and we selected these. We were kind of sniffed them, checked to make sure there's no sulfites or hasn't been treated with sulfur, and then we got them back and to Hastra, and we put in our blend into it, and we kept it in there for 3.5 years, constantly checking it every few months, because it is quite tricky to do a red wine finish, and you got to be very careful. If, for example, if there was too much sulfur in the cask, your whiskey will be ruined, your spirit will be ruined. So it was constantly checking it, and then it was kind of mid last year when we got it right, and we felt that it's right, it's okay to release. So we brought it out as a 9-year-old.
Will we have a little taste?
Yeah. Well, you mean, you'll see how straight away from the color there's a bit of redness. That's obviously from the red wine. On the nose, I get, and the audience, please shout out or put in the comments if you get something else. But I definitely get, sweet toffee. There's a lot of the fruits are coming through from the red wine, brown sugar. But you can definitely get the fruitiness that's predominant from the Bordeaux wine. So sláinte.
Sláinte.
Now, I mean, if you take away the Bordeaux finish, which is very much there, you should be getting. Well, I get a bit of spiciness coming through, a peppery spiciness, but it's then goes into a creamy type texture. So the fruit isn't overpowering the good 9-year-old blend, but you are definitely getting some. I don't know if I'm getting some peppers out, peppery kind of spiciness coming through. And the finish is
pepper.
Yeah, the finish is long for a good 9-year-old. It is a bit woody. It's woody, I think, in a positive way. I mean, it has been in American oak, it has been in French oak, but the finish, the lingering that I'm getting is very much vanilla.
Yeah.
I'm just going to double. But
you've got that combination of the American oak, maybe giving that vanilla note, and the European oak leaning in with a bit of there's a more fruity robustness to it. There's a drying to that as well from the European oak, I think. Maybe.
I mean, people have mistaken that for sulfur or sulfites. When people hear, red wine, must be sulfur in it. Well, we know these casks, we hand selected them, so we know they weren't treated. And this particular winery we go to, they do not add any sulfur, in their production. Now, sulfur, like any fermentation, sulfur is a product of any fermentation process. Same in whiskey making. That's why we have copper pot stills. I mean, the copper pot stills function as a way to remove any sulfur that's formed during fermentation. That happens also in making wine. But that's why it's important that you do select. And as I said, you got to go to Bordeaux. You got to do it yourself. You got to put in the legwork. But you got to be sure. Like, we're getting new casks at the moment for a new batch of a red wine finish, and you just have to be very, very sure that they don't, add any sulfur artificially to the wine cask. And the sulfur is used as a preservative. It's used to preserve the wine. So it is an important part of the winemaking process. But for us who like our whiskey with a nice red wine finish, it's not good for us. So we make sure we try and avoid it.
It's a lovely whiskey, and I love the fruit, the creamy fruitiness. Like it's almost like a raspberry biscuit, or there's almost like a Mikado note to it without the coconut. Just a lovely raspberry jam note to it coming through for me. Leather aroma for John, fruity for Gavin. And this is one of a range within Clancollough then, like, of age statements that have gone up to 20-year plus, isn't it?
Yeah, we've 7, 9, 11, 13, and 19, 20. And I like that comment there by Aaron. And we've actually got a 25-year-old coming out in a few months' time. So we're excited about that. And that's a single malt. So the 19, 20, and 25-year-old are single malts. So, I mean, Clancollough is about, it's a bit of fun. It's, it's source liquid. We're not saying it's from a Hasper distillery. And what we're going to offer next year will be completely different. But it's to celebrate Irish whiskey and to celebrate how innovative and different we can be with Irish whiskey. And that's what. And Clancollough itself, you saw the story about the Cullough brothers, but Clancollough was a very successful Irish whiskey brand in the 1800s by James McAllister and Sons up in Antrim. And so it was only kind of for us as McAllisters to bring back Clancollough, and it has a very has a very good pedigree. And you'll see old Irish whiskey posters around the place, and you'll see Clanculla on it as well. So it is a revival brand, and it's a brand to celebrate everything that's Irish whiskey.
It's a lovely whiskey, and I'm glad you've gone down the road of starting to tell the story of a Haskell through source whiskey, and inviting people to taste and introduce them to your own vision and values. And I think it's endeared many to your approach. And the Clanculla range has been, I haven't heard a bad word ever said about them. I think they're held in very high esteem, and you've chosen great whiskies from Cooley and chosen great casks as well. And the 9-year-old really showcases it. I think it's a lovely, lovely whiskey, and I think the comments here reflect that as well.
Good.
Jim loves it. Shane will be getting a bottle or two. You're making 3, Shane, altogether for the night that's in it. He's working hard in France. He had to fly over to France to taste this for us. Do you find a different approach that you're adopting to how you're maturing your own spirit compared to how you've matured or finished those whiskies that you've sourced?
Yes, we're taking a different approach. I'll let you all into a secret. So, we do single malt, we do single pot still. Most of the pot still that we do in a Haskell is go straight into sherry casks, and we have 4 different types of sherries on the run at the moment. On the malt, we don't do any finishing. So the malt is ex-bourbon standard, but also it's going to be virgin oak. So the malt that we're going to be releasing next year from a Haskell would have spent time in American oak and virgin then French oak actually. And the reason is that what we're releasing is a young spirit. It's going to be less than 5-year-old, and it's going to be good value. But I want people to taste the spirit and the quality of the spirit. I don't want to blind that quality with a seasoned cask or with wine, Madeira, port, or whatever. This is truly a kind of a first from the way we produced it. And at the end of the day, it's all about the quality of the spirit, the taste of the spirit, the sustainability, and how we made it is a good positive. But people will pick this up because they like it, and that's what we want to show, especially with the single malt. So I think that's the first time I've publicly said that we're doing. But we're going to start. And if anybody comes and visits us, you learn a lot more about it as well, especially if you do our warehouse tours, and you can taste some of it as well. But we're starting the kind of the marketing campaign of it, because this is, for myself and Michelle, this is kind of the biggest milestone there is in the business we're in terms of releasing your own whiskey and your own spirit, and we're going to celebrate it. So,
as you should. I enjoyed seeing your reaction to the reaction of when we brought the whiskey bus up to the distillery last year, and seeing our group taste the whiskies out of the casks, and then seeing your response to it, because as you said, you're used to tasting it in a bit of a vacuum because it's your whiskey, you taste it in your warehouse. It's always going to, there'll be a bit of bias to it, but it's not until you have somebody else taste it that you can really see whether they like it. And I think you were pleasantly surprised at how much people like such a young spirit.
I was, and I think people were actually giving me advice. They were saying, "Well, you should release the single pot still first."
Yeah, that might have been me.
That could have been you.
It was me, yeah.
But they're going to be both released in the same year, and then so basically early next year the malt, summer will be the pot still, and then end of next year be a blend of the two. So hope people will look at it and consider it. And if they want an age statement and something, if they do want to finish, that they can look at the Clanculla range, because there's plenty of options in the Clanculla range for that.
I know that Irish Malts have stocked the range now. There's, I think the whole range is down there. Most of the range is available to buy. So check out Irish Malts, folks, for the 9-year-old, 11-year-old, 7-year-old, and more from, and Zin Gin as well is available. A great gin from Haskell. And Adrian from the Harborview Hotel saying the Whiskey Chamber has received the 11-year-old today. So another whiskey shop on the North Coast there, they've got the 11-year-old available as well. And really appreciate you joining us. I know you're probably sick of talking about whiskey now after your time around France, but it's a pleasure to have you join us. And I always learn something about whiskey when I listen to you. So I really do appreciate you spending some time with 3 Drams, and thanks for supporting us with a drop of the 9-year-old.
No, I thank you for having us on, and thank you to the 3 Drams community for kind of following us, and the comments. I've been looking at them here coming up. They're very, very nice comments. So thank you all very much.
Well, we'll let you get some sleep after all your travels and safe home tomorrow. And hi to Michelle, and thanks again for joining us, Garrett.
I'll do. All the best, Barry. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much, Garrett. Take care. I love the Haskra story, and I love just how devoted and aligned they are on their approach to eco distilling and on reduction of carbon consumption and fossil fuel usage, and leaning so hard into that while also not sacrificing on how they're making their whiskey in terms of the quality, and tasting the semi whiskey as it was just maybe last year. Really, really hopeful, and really a really good portend for what the whiskey is going to be like when it gets released next year. So kudos to the team, to Garrett and Michelle and all of the team there, doing a great job in Haskra. And do make a visit to it. It's off the traditional beaten path, but it's worth going off the path to go and take a visit, because Haskra is a lovely village to visit, and just to see what the distillery and the cafe and the gift shop and the restaurant are doing for the village is remarkable. And plus, if you take the warehouse tour, you're going to be able to drink whiskey out of a barrel, and no whiskey ever tastes bad when it's tasted in a warehouse, which is the rule. So go there and book those tours and enjoy yourselves. And thanks to Garrett for joining us. And again, all of the range of Clancolla is available on Irish Malts if you'd like to check them out. All right, we're going to give Gavin a minute or two's heads up. Gavin sent us another video as well. We've got great videos tonight. We might play Gavin's video before he joins us from Garden County Distillery in Wicklow. Whiskey number 3, folks, our final whiskey tonight, single malt, really unusual cask component here, maple cask, which Gavin will tell us all about. But before he does, I'm going to play a little video that gives you a little 1.5 minute tour of Garden County Distillery, so you can get some context for what's happening in County Wicklow.
So one of the things that I'm most proud of is that I actually designed the distillery from the ground up, and it was designed specifically to be really good at making single pot still Irish whiskey. So if you come and visit us, hopefully in one of our tours in the near future, first thing you're going to see when you walk into the distillery is our 3 beautiful copper lembic stills. They're produced by a company called Hoga, based in Portugal. Hand-beaten copper stills made by copper smiths, centuries-old tradition, based in Portugal. After that, down the back of our distillery, you will see our steam boiler. So it's a boiler basically creating steam, which is fed throughout the distillery and is the heat source for producing all of the whiskey. You'll come then around the back, you'll see a big long grain hopper auger, which is attached to our mash conversion vessel. And a mash conversion vessel is really, really important in making single pot still whiskey, purely because when you're using a variety of grains, they release their sugars at a number of different temperatures. So it's really important that you have a mash conversion vessel to make good pot still whiskey. And then finally down at the corner you'll see our fermentation vessels. These are key for creating alcohol and spending enough time in the fermentation vessels to create different esters, different flavours, and the correct amount of alcohol that we need to distill the whiskey.
All right, with that, we'll bring on Gavin to join us. Gavin, all the way from Garden County Distillery in Wicklow. Welcome.
Hi, Barry. How you doing? Thanks very much
I'm
for
doing
having me.
great. Good to see you. You're busy upstairs in the distillery, blurring out all the things we shouldn't be seeing, all the formulas you're working on behind you.
Yeah, that's it. All the secret recipes that are behind me. But yeah, that's part and parcel of being here. A long day at the distillery. So apologies if I'm a bit dishevelled now, but this is the unglamorous side of having a whiskey distillery.
I know. I always marvel at just how much a distiller has to do, from not just the production, but all the log booking, the record keeping, and then the marketing, and then talking to people like me, because no good to just make it. You have to try and market the stuff as well. Your day is never your own, is it?
No, never. And look, I mean, we mightn't be physically the smallest distillery on the island, but I can guarantee you we are the smallest distillery in terms of employees. Like it's myself and my father, and it's been that way since we started. And yeah, it's one hell of a slog when you have to worry about, as you mentioned, distilling and logbooks and revenue, and my father looks after all the compliance, which is a great thing. He started out his life out of college in the revenue, which has given me a brilliant leg up at this stage, because as we all know, the tax man is the first man to get their pound of flesh in this game. And then the sales and the marketing. So yeah, it's not all drinking whiskey from barrels and having a great old time.
No, there's the romance. Like people often ask, Barry, would you ever start a distillery? I said, not in my wildest imagination or dreams would I have the ability, the patience, the skill to do what you do. And I tip my hat to you at every opportunity. And as one of the comments mentioned there, that is one clean distillery that you've got. You keep the place like a new pin at the same time.
Don't be fools. That was on the handover when we got commissioned. It doesn't. There's a reason I'm not down there now. That
was my opportunity. I was setting up there for just thanking me. Like, I'm just giving you a layup.
No, not at all. Sure, we couldn't be. Our ethos is authenticity and transparency. So there's, I can guarantee it looks not like that there at the moment. There's hoses everywhere, and there's Lord knows what else is down there. I'm sure it needs a good power hose and a mop and all the rest of it.
Well, you've a few people here who would probably volunteer to do a bit of sweeping for you if you paid them in whiskey. Worst case scenario. Tell us. So Garden County Distillery. Tell us a little bit about the distillery and when you started it, and give us some background to help us understand where you are today, and then we'll have a little sip of your wonderful whiskey.
Absolutely. Well, look, as I mentioned, our whole thing, our whole ethos is about the authenticity and transparency of what we do, and we just tell the story as it was. So we started out with myself and my father. We actually had a gin distillery previous to this, and that was sort of set up in 2016. Now, we always knew that we were moving towards Irish whiskey, so what we started doing at that stage was bonding stocks of whiskey from Great Northern Distillery at our warehouse down here. So we've been in the, this company was actually established in 2020, but we were sort of building momentum towards that all the way from 2016, and I suppose that's why, although we didn't make whiskey back then, we did bond it, and we've had all of our whiskey cask stock since new make. We don't purchase anything sort of down the line, anything that's not got our fingerprints on it. And that sort of all comes back to our idea around, really, really putting something out there that we've put our stamp on. You've had two other people on tonight, and everyone sort of sources whiskey, and that is just the nature of the game at the moment. But we're very proud to say now that we've had our own, we have our own functional working distillery downstairs. So the real part of the whiskey journey started in about 2020. That little thing called COVID came along and sort of stopped the world and gave us a breathing moment to decide that we could really put some time towards, the development of the brand, and gave me a bit of space. To look at the distillery, exactly what we wanted to make of the distillery, and then how I was going to go about that. So having learned from 2016 to 2020 all about distilling, and I had never been a distiller before that. It was a lot of trial and error in that time. I went about designing the distillery from the ground up, and you've got that lovely picture there just up at the slides. And they were the basis of where I started. So there are 3 hand-beaten copper alembics made in Portugal, and there's just a beautiful sort of symbiotic relationship between the craft that it takes to make one of those machines that's standing there tall, proud, and pretty, and then everything that we do here between crafting grain, fermentation, and then running them through those stills to create something, really beautiful to put into the bottle at the end of the day. And that whole relationship between the craft is something that we just absolutely love, and it's something that just gets us excited. So I sort of live for it, and it sounds a bit corny to say it, but like, you have to have a business hat on at some stage, but doing all this stuff is absolutely amazing on a day-to-day basis. So that's sort of never lost on us. That was also COVID gave us time and space to look at design the distillery, design the brand, and then the beauty of COVID was that it gave us about a 2-year delay from going to order the distillery equipment to it getting delivered, because obviously everything was shut down all around the world. Shipping lanes, manufacturing, any kind of anything was that we needed was sort of kibosh at that time. So it took us a lot longer than we had anticipated to get everything into the distillery and then commissioned here as well. So being a small team, we designed the distillery from the ground up. We designed the branding, and of course, we're based in Wicklow, gives us our name, Garden County Distillery. We're based. I saw someone just asked there, Noel, where are we in Wicklow? We're based in a small spot called the Village Mill in Rathnew. So we're sort of bang in the centre of the county, just by the coast. And as many people may or may not know, Garden County probably rings true for some people, but it just niggles back in the back of the mind. What does it relate to? Wicklow's colloquially known, obviously, and affectionately known as the Garden County of Ireland, and we wanted to sort of help push our, establish our place on the map here. This is where we are, and this is what we do. So that's where we came up with the name. And after getting ourselves established and commissioned here, we filled our first cask on the 31st of December 2024. And as they say, many people have their original cask filled December, but that's sort of not by design. It's sort of a timeline that crushes people. Everyone tries to get in before the year's end so that they can be distilling a year ahead of what they've actually had. So our first cask filled in 2024, but right at the end of the year. So we're really only about 15 months into aging that at the moment. And what we've been doing in the meantime is curating some beautiful casks that we've had here in our warehouse and coming up with some interesting finishes, which is what we're going to have here tonight.
I think you've done a great job of working with the likes of Great Northern Distillery, who Gavin mentioned there. They've been great for giving people a head start while distilling happens and maturation happens. But you've done a great job of putting your own stamp on the spirit and coming out with very unusual approaches and very unusual like single grains. And you've not just followed the pack. And I think this next whiskey is a great example of we'll roll the dice on something a bit mad here and see how it goes.
Yeah, well, there's no two ways of going about it. We didn't make the whiskey ourselves, so we have to make it unique, that was our plan. And that's our plan with everything that we do. We sort of have a core range, which is a blend and a 5-year-old single grain. Excuse me. Our blend is a high malt content, so we've got about 20% malt content there, and we use ex-stout casks in that, as well as virgin oak. I'm a big fan of virgin oak. So we use virgin bourbon and stout casks in that. And then probably a more traditional and really, really approachable, but it's age statement 5-year-old single grain there as well that we use some Oloroso sherry cask finishing on. So that's kind of part of our core range. And I always joke, whiskey is my first love, or coffee was my second. So we went and made a cold brew coffee liqueur here with a local coffee roaster who, if I look out the window behind me, I'll be able to see the lads that roast the coffee. So we produce a cold brew, a cold brew neutral spirit liquor, and then we add a homemade demerara sugar syrup to that. So that kind of rounds out our core range, and then we really focus on doing single casks or really small batches. Generally, the most we do is a couple of casks together. And then what brought us on to this guy was our launch into some of the export markets, mainly the US. So this was sort of designed with the US in mind. And for that, we added a 8-year-old single grain rye cask finish and this beautiful 7-year-old single malt maple syrup cask. So this was the more exclusive of the two of those, but we wanted to sort of have an Americana style note to our Irish whiskey while we're going over to the US. So that was sort of the thinking around it. So yeah, basically we've got our core range here, a little range that we have for the US, and then outside of that, generally what we release is single casks, We've done about 7 of those to date. They're all sold out and they're all gone. But we've got an upcoming one that we're starting a new series of fortified wine cask releases. So that'll be coming out in the near future. But they generally tend to be sort of, 200, 300 bottles. And we've done Tawny Port, Ruby Port, Virgin Oak, Oloroso casks and stuff like that. So it's some quite interesting stuff. And it just helps us learn about what we want to do with our own spirits going forward,
Was there anything in the maple cask before you filled it up?
No, so it's not a maple wood cask. It's a maple syrup. It's a maple syrup cask.
Maple syrup. Okay.
So it was maple syrup. Yeah. No, it held. It had a 6-month finishing with bourbon from a distillery called Iron Fish in Michigan, and then we got 4 of those casks brought in here. There's a slight thing that would be in the Irish whiskey technical file that if we put it straight in, if it was maple syrup and then we put it straight in, they might have considered that we had added sugar to the whiskey.
Yes.
And then we wouldn't have been able to call it whiskey. But look, these are the trials and tribulations that we deal with in terms of Irish whiskey technical file and government and all the rest of it. And no less than one of your releases that wasn't in a bonded warehouse, we couldn't call it Irish whiskey anymore.
We'll beg for forgiveness. We'll beg for forgiveness.
Yes, precisely. But yeah, we've kind of thrown the GI sort of version of this out the window, because pretty much everything that we make here now in the distillery is pot still. So as you saw in our or it's not pot still, it's mixed mash bill really is what it is. But there's been ongoing conversation for the last sort of 3-4 years, and we don't know when that's going to come to fruition. But they're talking about changing the technical file to allow a larger amount of adjunct grains going into a single pot still. But that's our focus here now at the moment. We made some GI compliance stuff for the first 6 months, and then we came off that. Our ethos is, again, it's about sort of getting grain to glass and the transparency of doing it. So using high amounts of old wheat and rye, because they add so much more flavour. I liken it sort of to an analogy of, if you went to a restaurant, I see the Scots have been getting away with it for ages, even though I have a lovely single malt with myself here. They're all making the same recipe every day of the week and putting it out, saying how great they are. But would you go to a restaurant to a guy who was only using one ingredient, or someone who was using 5 ingredients? I think I know the answer myself. I'd be going to the guy who's making the steak with salt and pepper, and you're getting chips and a dip as well at the same time, rather than a guy who's just mashing the steak out of the grill and has nothing else for you. So
that's a massive debate in the world of Irish whiskey at the moment for our viewers who may not be aware. Like, one of the styles of Irish whiskey is pot still whiskey, which is no less than 30% malted barley, no less than 30% unmalted barley, and up to 5% other grains like wheat, oats, rye, for example. But historically, pot still whiskey could have contained anything, really. It was just, there was very few limits. But, the Irish government and the Irish whiskey industry has been working towards maybe expanding the number of, or the higher percentage of grains that could be used in pot still whiskey, up to maybe 30% other grains. The challenge, so I spend a lot of time doing tastings with American audiences and trying to describe what single pot still whiskey is, and it's such a difficult term to explain, because single keeps getting people keep thinking it's just one grain. You have to tell them it's one distillery, and the challenge is that you've got breads on the shelf that say multi-grain bread, but you think, well, that's better for me. Well, we for some reason we've not been able to call our whiskey multi-grain whiskey, which was the biggest miss, I think, in all of us, in all of the chances of defining this category. But we're stuck with it now. But it's a difficult thing to explain.
It really is. And looking at typical Irish fashion, right? We have a style called single grain, and that's defined not by the grains that are used, but by the equipment that is distilled in the column still. And then we have a pot still whiskey, single pot still whiskey that is defined by the use of different grains, not by the pot still that it's made in.
Correct.
So it's just typical Irish fashion. We love to do things backwards. And as you mentioned there, our massive export markets are China and the US. And in the US, they're really, really familiar with 3-grain bourbons, 4-grain bourbons, rye, high oat, high rye, high wheat. So going over there, I throw single pot still out the window, because it's so hard to explain.
Yes.
And it's kind of nausea, if you know what I mean. It's really, now some people love that, but trying to explain it in the sales point of view is very frustrating. So we just say, look, we're a mixed mash bill distillery, and they love it. They love it in the States. It really works well.
And even the word mash bill itself is loaded, because the people outside of a whiskey audience won't know what a mash bill is, but they know what a recipe is. So you're constantly trying to understand who's the audience. There's no one catch-all term that's going to make it right for everybody, but I need to write an article about this, because I want to get all my thoughts out of my head, because they're annoying me about this topic, because it's just so difficult to explain. But anyway,
I know. I'm living it every day.
We won't solve it now tonight, but we'll old man yells at cloud kind of an approach,
yeah. Waves at sky. Waves fist at sky. Yeah.
Why I ought. Okay, let's talk about this whiskey, because folks have they're definitely not waiting for us to drink the whiskey. They're powering on. Great feedback so far. Do you have a drop there to hand that you could?
I certainly do. 9 o'clock at night. I couldn't be waiting this long. So
go on. So
yeah, I have a healthy drop of it here.
Good man.
It's so we have this bottle at 46%. Anything that we export, right? You made a very good point earlier about the tax on whiskies in Ireland, and it's just, the reason we go at sort of lower ABVs here is because of the tax. But anything we export, we go at a higher ABV. I really wouldn't like to go below 46 if I wasn't handcuffed in this jurisdiction, but unfortunately it's the way it is. So this is a 46% ABV, 7-year-old single malt meaning it was made from 100% malted barley in one distillery. That distillery was Great Northern. And then what we did was we had different parts of the batches, and we recast some of it. So everything came in bourbon at the start, and as I mentioned, big fan of Virgin American oak. Gives you beautiful sort of vanilla base, nice tannins, lovely caramel, and then as you mentioned, maple syrup cask, wild, weird, funky. We're looking for some things that are just going to help us pull out there, and I thought developing this for the US market, maple syrup sounded great, right? So we were apprehensive at the start, but I'm absolutely delighted how it's come out. I just didn't want it to be this big sort of sugar bomb and really, really sweet. And I just didn't want it to ruin it, but I was happy to take the chance. So we only used one maple syrup cask for that reason. And then I lengthened it out by beefing it up with bourbon and also the virgin oak. So we only made about 1,100 bottles of this, and 720 of them went over to the States. So there's only about 350 or so left. And that's what we have in the glass here. So I love on the nose. I get this kind of slightly smoky now. There's no peat in this whatsoever, but I kind of get this light smoked kind of flavor. And I wonder myself, does it come little bit from whatever they did with the charring of it after the maple syrup came out? But you get that kind of maple caramel, vanillas, wood shavings, and this kind of light smokiness. It's just sitting there in the back of it now, really, really light. But I always feel like I get that distinctly. The warm
and I've seen that come out in whiskies that have not been smoked. Boan Distillery have a whiskey that you'd be convinced was peated, but they talk about the guaiacol. The compound is present in some of their casks. The sherry casks, for example, is contributing this note for some reason to some of their whiskies.
Yeah. So that's in there, although albeit at a very low level. And then small bit of green apples, but I suppose that's really, really characteristic of Irish whiskey. Anyway, so we're getting that, and then we move down onto the palate, and I get, that beautiful malty biscuitiness, obviously straight away. I'm pulled in sort of with sort of maple candied oats, or not oats, excuse me, nuts. So it's it's an earthiness and a nuttiness that I get to this. And you don't get that massive sweetness, which was what made me so happy about the finish on it, and so keen to actually release the thing. But yeah, I get that kind of, that those can of nuts that you get and you pop them and you pull the seal off top. I get that kind of sugar coated nuttiness and earthiness.
Yeah.
And kind of you get kind of a maple wood. Now it's not a maple wood cask, but it's a maple syrup cask, of course, as I said. But I get that maple woodiness. It's not quite as oaky as some of the other whiskies. That we have. You get that maple wood kind of coming through on it as well.
There's a Bloody Mary breakfasty note to this. There's a sweetness. There's a Tabasco-ness to it.
Yeah, a little bit of I give, yeah, slightly spiced, earthy spice for me, and then you get that kind of that cinnamony note, and as you said, that kind of brings you back towards that kind of that definitely brings you back towards the Bloody Mary notes. Yeah, a little cinnamony, and then again that light smoke kind of comes through, maple sweetness, toasted wood shavings on the end, but immediately actually, I was going to say medium to long finish, but it's more towards a long. And maybe that's just because it's been a long day, but it's more towards a long finish for me tonight. Is where I'm at with it. But it gives you it's a lovely drop, and we were making a
lovely syrupy nature to it. Like it's it doesn't leave your cheeks.
No, we're making a maple Manhattan out of it. And
oh, lovely.
Yeah, it's working nice. But a maple old fashioned will go down as well.
I was going to say it'd make a lovely old fashioned.
Yeah, steamingly. So that's that was where we got to with that, and it's just, I mean, there's really there's an oiliness to it as well. I'm just looking at the legs here, dropping down my own glass. Obviously, laptop cameras aren't 4K or whatever you call them, Ultra HD, but there's nice legs in it as well. So it does stand up the test of time with its 46%, and that's just why I like to have that extra bit of ABV. If anybody likes to, add a drop of water to that's their prerogative, which is great. But,
yeah,
it definitely works. Yeah.
Great use of kind of skirting the GI there and skirting the maturation rules with the old syrup and it's perfect.
It is, and I think. I'm sure if we had to, nobody wants to be getting into arguments with the government, but I'm sure we would have got around it in the end of the day. But having the bourbon gone into it for 6 months, that got us around all that stuff as well, which is good.
There are bigger things to be worrying about now than that, honestly. You'd think.
Sure. Isn't there always?
It's people are enjoying this, really enjoying the whiskey. Folks, share your notes there if you do or you don't like it, and we'll look at all the comments. Alan says one of the best since the Stories and Sips JJ Corrie 19-year-old. That's high praise for a more youthful whiskey. And thanks for that, Alan. Will you be at Whiskey Live in 2026? Alan wants to know.
Yeah, actually, I think we're taking a stand this year. We haven't been in a couple of years, but it's partly due to just the size of what we're doing. And the human resources that we have, but. We actually have a few things coming on in the next few weeks, and hopefully we'll be expanding the team, because I jokingly tell people I have 5 jobs, I have 5 full-time jobs, but if I actually started counting them, I think I might have 7. So I try not to count them, but with the extra hands in-house, it'll just allow me more time to spend on Ireland. I mentioned we have US is a big market for us, and Canada's a big market for us, and then in Ireland, we work through all the specialty drinks guys, all the great independent family-owned businesses, Irish Malts Online, of course. But we have very little reach beyond the specialty guys.
Yes,
which is just it's a pity, but it's just constrained by resources. So hopefully we can get this over the line. What we might do is we have to get to Whiskey Live this year, and we'll have some new make with us then as well. Which would be
there's only so much you can do, and I know talking from other brands and other brand owners that they can't be at all the festivals because time constraints, budget constraints. They every time you're at a festival, you're pulled away from production, and it's money that might be spent on grain. So it's a constant juggling act. I know that you're always dealing with.
Yeah, that's it precisely. So and we, as I said earlier, like we could be flat out down here, and. Every day that you're not here making, you're sort of in 3 years' time, you're not going to have a barrel. So that's our production schedule. We make a barrel a day. So out of all of our kit, I never mentioned that. Sorry, out of all of our kit, we end up with a barrel a day. So every day I sacrifice producing, we're sacrificing a cask for all the lovely Stories and Sips, three Drams customers in 3 to 4 years' time.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of looking at it, right? Do you take anybody in? You don't have time to do visitor tours, do you, in the distillery?
We don't actually. We've had a couple of inquiries from some tour people, and it's on my to-do list, because you know what? There's nothing better than getting people in. You you can sort of do all the social media and all of the, lovely pictures and videos and all the stuff that you like. But Jesus, when you get people down here and they walk in the door, they've really got a sense of the place. And the rest and Marathon before, you get in and you get taste the stuff out of barrels, and you get to see and touch the stills, and you meet the people and you shake the hands. It's just it's a great experience for us, as well as whoever visits. So keep your eyes peeled. We're actually we're doing up our website at the moment. So I don't know if our website, I don't even know if our old website is still live, but hopefully within a number of weeks we're gonna have a brand new website, which will give you just so much more information right up, and keeping an eye on that if and when we do start taking visitors on a regular basis. That would certainly be up there.
Keep us posted if you need people to head your way, and we'll send the thirsty baying mobs to your door.
Absolutely.
The price there, €65 on this one, isn't it? List price, and then
65. Yeah.
And 10% off thanks to your generous discount of your whole range, actually, on Irish malts.
Yeah. Well, look, if people get in, we do understand that there's constraints on how many bottles of whiskey people can buy, whether it's the other half telling them they can't, or it's just the bank balance. So we have we've got this beauty, and look, it really is a great drop in our opinion. Like, I wouldn't release it if it wasn't. But there is some of the slightly more accessible price ranges as well. Our blend in our 5-year, and then we have these coming out now nice and shortly. If it will ever unblur, we've got the triple pack, sort of trilogy cans, the 3 by 100 ml cans there for us as well. So it allows people to get in and sort of buy them at try the range without having to buy a bottle of each. Very good,
excellent.
Yeah.
Alan says, don't see a place to put code. Alan, have you bought enough whiskies now this way to know where the code is on the checkout page? It's there's a drop down. It says if you have it's not a field, it's a drop down, and once you click on the drop down, it'll put it in. Don't worry, they won't go to stock waiting for you. We'll get it done.
Furiously ordering bottles of whiskey.
Sweating bullets there, Alan, in County Clare. We'll get you sorted. Listen, thanks for allowing us to taste something unusual and something that's not core range, and it's always a journey for us. It's always just a learning journey for us whenever we meet a distiller and listen to how they make their whiskies and how they source and how they mature. I loved it. I love this whiskey. It's a great whiskey, and I think looking at the way people have been ranking, you'll see the numbers there. People have anecdotally ranking the whiskies of the night. You're coming out on top for a lot of folks, so that's great to see.
Delighted.
Keep her lit.
Delighted. Absolutely. Well, look, thanks a million for giving us the opportunity to come on and meet everyone and get the whiskey.
It's our pleasure.
Because that's
what thank you.
People championing the small guys, which is great. Appreciate it.
And
congratulations, Whiskey Communicator of the Year. Don't forget to put that in the comments, guys.
Yeah, well, look.
Communicator of the Year released today. Well done.
You do all the hard work of making the stuff. I only have to talk about it. It's hardly a tough job. Like, so you keep making it. I'll keep talking until they tell me shut up.
And keep drinking. Don't forget
Keep drinking.
Drinking.
Drinker of the Year. That's the next one. Drinker of the Year. But listen, we've been talking for years. We've never met in person, have we?
We haven't. Yeah, we have. I think at Cork Whiskey Fest, we did.
Oh, we shook hands in Cork. That's right. We shook hands in Cork. Very briefly.
Did you ever walk in here? No, actually, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
No.
You're open door policy whenever you want.
Yeah, I'll break in if you're not there. Just send on the old address.
That's it. I'll give you a special security code to turn off the alarm.
Oh, lovely. Listen, you have enough going on, and to be joining us is a treat for us. So look, thanks a million, Gavin, for being with us tonight and for sharing your knowledge and your whiskey with us. And hopefully we get a few to buy. And if nothing else, we're getting Garden County out there and the stories being told, and we'll keep building on it for you.
Brilliant, much appreciated, and we appreciate the support as always. And thanks to everyone at the Three Drams Club to just get out there and try something new. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Gavin. Thanks a million for joining us. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon. All the best.
Good night, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Very unusual whiskey, isn't it? Maple syrup. It's the number of rules and guidelines you have to follow when you're making whiskey to to get something over the line. There's when I was interviewing the Alex from Gift of the Gab yesterday. There's a bit of the video we cut out where he talked about some of the things they were attempting before they realized that's probably breaking the law. We can't do that. But there's just so many things that, from a procedural standpoint and a compliance standpoint, every aspect of it. I mean, there is more paperwork than whiskey making work that happens in a distillery. And you could have a revenue official drop into your distillery, your warehouse, your bond, unannounced for a random inspection. It doesn't matter what you have on your calendar that day. If they choose to do a random inspection, your logbooks have to be up to date on all aspects of distilling, because this goes all the way back to the Excise Act of 1823 and the establishment of a more formal tax procedure on alcohol and excise on alcohol and on produced alcohol, not on where it was historically on the capacity for production. It used to be taxed, and it moved to what you actually made, but you have to prove what you've lost. There has to be a justifiable amount through the manufacturing, kind of the brewing and the distilling process, and then eventually the maturation process. You have to account for your losses, because every drop of lost alcohol is lost tax revenue to the government. So you best believe that they defend it and they chase it and they legislate to guarantee it and to get it, and they prosecute if they don't get it. And we have the romantic side of the whiskey journey, because we're the drinkers. We're the ones looking at a glass going, oh, wasn't this amazing? Nosing it, aren't we great? But behind that, like, to get to this point, the amount of work that had to be done aside from whiskey making is just mind-boggling. So I have great respect for anybody who has taken on that role and dedicated themselves to that, knowing that in order to get great whiskey, that's the bit they have to do as well. And how many brains are capable of doing both things? How many brains? Okay, I'm not capable of. I have a very narrow lane within which I can work, and even that would be questionable at times. But outside of that, I'm useless. Like, I'm completely useless, and I can't imagine just the range of skills needed to be able to use both sides of the brain fairly evenly to get the whiskey made. Incredible, incredible. Okay. Lots of you looking for more whiskey journals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Lighthouse Drinks count how many we have, and if we have enough, we'll stick one in every one of the kits going out in March. I know a year ago in March, so we're coming up to our 12-month anniversary now. Actually, next month's our 12 months. We ordered a whole pile of them they came from America of all places. They're Seattle, I think, or Vancouver, maybe Canada, maybe Seattle, and they're made specially, and they're made with ink that includes Clonakilty whiskey. Very unusual. And I'll have them count the journals, and if there's enough to get them all out, we'll get one in every kit next month. So leave that with me. We'll try and get that done for you. Alan found the coupon area, the discount code area on the website. Alan, there was a vigil being held across the country to ensure that you got that. Okay, fair play to you. The candles can be blown out now. Alan got 2. Portland, Oregon is where they came from. Portland, Oregon. There you go. Colin says they sell them in the Harbour View Hotel for £80. Okay, if you're dropping by there. Okay, so 3 very different whiskies, 3 very different approaches. And I think a great chance to see just the approaches to whiskey making, the challenges of that whiskey makers have. What you saw today were 3 whiskey makers who are still, the last 2 whiskey makers are still waiting for their own whiskey to mature. The first of our whiskeys tonight, they have no plans to build a distillery. But you're seeing the journey, you're seeing the waiting, you're seeing that while all the maturation happens, there's still bills being paid for sourced whiskey, while at the same time you're investing in the grain and the yeast and the water and the energy and the wood for the new whiskey. So you've kind of got these 2 tracks that are going at the same time until such time as you decide, right, we're not going to source anymore, we're just going to stick to our produced whiskey. It's very hard to make it through that. Like, the cash flow is a huge issue. And in the current climate, when every business is feeling it at the moment. It just makes it harder and harder to get paid, and harder to get the bills paid, because it's the belts are being tightened. We see it. We see it in 3 Drams as well. We see €35 can be tough. It can be tough to pay that every month. So we're well aware of it. Okay, let's talk about it next month. But again, a great thank you to our guests tonight. Thanks to Gavin Clifford from Garden County. Thanks to Garrett McAllister from Haskell Distillery. And thanks to Alex Moynihan from Gift of the Gab Irish Whiskey for joining us as well, and giving us an insight into their whiskey making process. There's no discount code for whiskey number 2, but their full range is available on Irish malts, Jason. Gwen just ordered a Gift of the Gab. Very good. Andrew says, are we going all out on the next Drams for our 1-year anniversary? I only just realised 30 seconds ago it's our 1-year anniversary, Andrew, but fair play for making me look bad now all of a sudden. No, what we have next month is we have 3 whiskies, and I think you're going to enjoy them. We've got a new expression from Jameson, so we're going to go from one of the smallest distilleries in Ireland, talking today like to Gavin, to the biggest distillery in Ireland, to Middleton. We will have a Jameson Triple Chestnut Edition in our kits for March. If you haven't tried that, it is a fantastic, very affordable whiskey that you'll see on the shelves all around you. We were finalising a whiskey from Crawley Distillery in Donegal, near Gweedore, and they have a whiskey that they're just working on. They want to make sure they choose the right one for us. And we will have a whiskey from W.D. O'Connell Whiskey Merchants that is a single pot still whiskey that has been rested in a cask that used to contain a smoky whiskey. And I think you'll be very interested to see and to taste that one. And I'll be interested to get your feedback on it. So 3 very different whiskies again next month. We have a lot of feelers out there for 2026 to try and get distilleries into our rotation. There are some big distilleries that we cannot get over the line. They just, for compliance issues, they don't allow their bottles to be broken down into small sample bottles, believe it or not. One very big distillery that would be well known doesn't allow that, and some distilleries that just they can't wrap their head around how this all works, despite much smaller distilleries understanding very easily how it works. So if you see there's gaps, like how come this one distillery has never been in the kit? It may not be because we haven't asked them. It may be just because they're not. It doesn't suit their legal guidelines of how they can do things, and we won't name or shame anybody, but rather just I think that's just to show that we're trying to get as wide a range as possible. So we have there'll be new whiskies released in 2026 that'll make their first appearance with us on 3 Drams, and we've thrown that opportunity out to lots of distilleries. So for the next few weeks, I'm working hard on finalising the rest of the calendar for 2026. Okay, so our big goal, like the last couple of months, has been the technical side of our business behind the scenes. It's been very, very tough, and we spent an awful lot of money, and will continue to, on making sure that the back end of the website can support our growth, because we can't invest in advertising or marketing the business and growing it if we're just growing the problem. So we have to solve that first with our developer, make sure you all get your kits on time. We're trying to get well ahead of the curve. Like I'm trying to get whiskies months ahead of time. It's just a lot of moving pieces, and with the best of intentions, everyone is trying to do the best. And sometimes you might have everything ready, and then one whiskey just doesn't make it to you until the day you bottle, and then it pushes everything back because suddenly you can't bottle again for a week. So you're kind of trying to fit into bottling schedules as well, because 3 Drams isn't the only thing that's bottled at Lighthouse Drinks. They bottle for 20 plus different whiskey brands and do orders of thousands and thousands of bottles. So we're all the time trying to figure out how it all works. It's a bit of a logistical joy, and bear with us as we try and get that right for the next month. Aaron has all 11 boxes in front of him with about 10 ml left in all the bottles. Looking forward to the birthday month. That sounds like an infinity bottle waiting to happen. If you were to take all of those now and pour them into one bottle, you would have the first ever 3 Drams bottle. Gavin says, are we doing a 3 Drams exclusive? No, we'll never do a 3 Drams exclusive. Stories and Sips exists for that. You're all, as a 3 Drams member, you can get access to Stories and Sips. Stories and Sips will do bottlings. We'll have a few bottlings in 2026, and we'll make them available to 3 Drams members. But it's complicated enough as it is without doing more labels, and we're trying to spread the love as best we can between our bottlings. What else do we have here question-wise? Gary says, we're a year in. How about a poll on the best month, the best Dram grand final? Well, why don't we do that next year or next month when we have our 12-month anniversary or 1-year anniversary? I'll send out an email in advance and ask you to think about what was your favorite whiskey of the year and maybe what you'd like to see going forward. And I'll send a little poll out to you. We'll work on that. What else is going on? All right. So look, thanks for all the support, first of all. And I feel like I should, when I get emails saying a whiskey kit has got lost or I didn't receive my kit in time, I take it so personally because my name is attached to this and you've paid your money and you have to get your kits. There's no point in paying for the service if you can't get it in enough time that you can have the kit ready for the night's tasting. That's it. That's the bare minimum you should expect. So I do take it personally, but I hope by March now that problem will be eliminated. We have a great developer who is coming up with solutions I never even thought could be done, and he's going to make it a lot easier. He's helping us with so much, and it's given me a renewed confidence in the back end of the website. Which, look, you don't know these things until they break or they deprecate, and you realise I should have maybe inspected that. I should have done my research on that before I bought it. But no word against Lighthouse Drinks or anybody. That's just old tech that ages out and doesn't anymore serve its purpose. So we're rebuilding that. Let's talk about the world of whiskey. What's going on in the world of whiskey at the moment? Any news on Waterford? Andrew asks. Yeah, so Waterford Distillery, the word is that by the end of this month, so possibly this week or early next week, we should have official news that the distillery has been acquired by an American distillery or distilling company called Tennessee Distilling Company. And Tennessee Distilling Company, they make third-party whiskies, a bit like Great Northern, but in America. And they make whiskies for other brands. What it sounds like is that the Waterford dream is over as a project, the terroir project, the focus on the farms, the single farm origin whiskies. That's a dead duck, it would seem, sadly. And it looks like the distilling company that's going to acquire Waterford isn't interested in the stock of whiskey. And there's millions of litres of whiskey in warehouses in Waterford, and they don't want the stock. They just want the stills, and they want the ability to make Irish whiskey, I guess. We'll learn more about that when there's announcements made, but the stock is still with the receiver. So I think the receiver would love to just offload all that stock, but it's an uncertain time in the world of whiskey where valuations on whiskey casks are varying tremendously. And the great fear would be amongst the whiskey industry that if whiskey was to be sold very cheaply from that stock, it sets the baseline for what whiskey of that age is worth. And lots of distilleries in Ireland have secured loans on the value of their stock. And if all of a sudden the value of their stock is less than it was based on new market data, you could see a scenario where loans get called in, or it could threaten the viability of credit lines. And that's a fear. So it's interesting times, but look, it's no different than any industry in the world. It goes through cycles, and sometimes you're on the upswing and sometimes you're on the downswing. Waterford is sadly just not going to get to fulfill its goal. And I'm very, very sad about that. A tremendous project that took the focus away from the copper and the chrome and brought it back to the fields and the earth and the ground and the organic approach to whiskey making, the pre-industrialization of farming, and the focus on what it must have been like before heavy machinery crushed the soil and flattened the soil, and before modern crops were developed, what were heritage varieties. I don't think any of that's going to be continued. So we're the poorer as a whiskey community for that. So that's quite sad. That is quite sad. John's in Ohio. Where can you order a gift for the Gab? Only from Irish Malts, John. Here's your challenge. It's going to cost you about $79 or $80 to ship a bottle to the US, and that's just because of you-know-what, tariffs and shipping costs. It's as simple as that. There is an alternative way. If you were ever visiting Ireland, you can order a bottle and have it delivered to Irish Whiskey Auctions. They'll hold it for you. Or you could build up a war chest of whiskies that are delivered to Irish Whiskey Auctions, and then they could ship a bunch of bottles together for you, and it would reduce your per bottle cost. A lot of people do that. Irish Whiskey Auctions You can Google them. They offer that as a service. You can use them as an Irish address if you want to order things domestically in Ireland to them. And then when you're ready, you can say, clear my shelf, ship it all to me, and they'll ship everything to you. And Neil asks if I ever did Ballykeefe. You know what, Neil? I haven't, and it does prompt me to reach out to them again because I'm due a conversation. So let me reach out to them. It's a great suggestion, and I know they're doing very interesting things. So let me have a talk to Ballykeefe and see if we can get them in the first half of the year. Jamie says, it's mad how I started drinking whiskey 18 months ago, joining this 12 months ago, visiting Middleton 2 months ago, to having a collection of 18 bottles. Love the journey. It's a slippery old slope, isn't it? It's a slippery old slope. And sometimes that slope is like covered in washing up liquid and it's tough to get back up it. It just keeps sliding down it. It's a tough old one. I think, and I've done the same, Jamie. Once you get into it, you get hooked not on the alcohol but on the excitement of the stories and the new releases, and even things like beautiful bottles and presentations and chances to meet the makers. That's really exciting. And I think my only note of caution with all that is, buy what you do want to drink eventually. And if you don't want to drink it, I'm sure there's ways to offload it, but there's many a collection that never gets fully enjoyed. So hopefully you get to enjoy everything you're drinking. Thomas is hiding bottles in my daughter's wardrobe so my wife doesn't find them. Well, the daughter might find them. How old's your daughter? There was something else in the world of whiskey I wanted to talk about as well. Oh, yes. So on that topic that Gavin was talking about, around the definitions of Irish whiskey. So you've tasted some single pot still whiskies over the course of the last 12 months. And as I've mentioned before, and some of you, this may be new to you, but there are 3 styles of Irish whiskey. There's grain whiskey, which is made in tall columns, copper and chrome columns, stainless steel columns. And that whiskey is typically made with corn. We call it maize in Ireland, okay? So it could be up to 95, 96, 97% corn or maize, and maybe a small percentage of a fermentable grain like malted barley, okay? And that'll be mixed in there like a malt and grain blend together. The malt will be mixed in there into the grain. It's still called a single grain. We've also got malt whiskey, which is made with 100% malt barley, one single distillery. And then we've got pot still whiskey. And this is where there's been the most discussion over the last few years, animated discussions, animated meetings and tense meetings between whiskey makers and government organisations about the definition of what Irish whiskey can be. The argument that has been put forward by many in the industry is that the legal definition of Irish whiskey, as it's written today, was written at a time when the only distillery making pot still whiskey in Ireland was Middleton Distillery. And by and large, they wrote the technical definition of what pot still whiskey should be. And I don't think, looking back, anyone could argue with, well, if Middleton Whiskey is the maker of pot still whiskey, we should enlist their support and their help in defining what that is. In retrospect, some distillers are looking back saying, but they defined it based on how they make it, not on what it could be. And maybe that was, to some, they're considering that maybe gatekeeping. In other words, if not everybody can make whiskey that way or doesn't want to make whiskey that way, it prevents them from doing so. And everybody has got, many distilleries and brands have gotten stuck on, or maybe not stuck, but rather focused on this definition of pot still whiskey. Historically, pot still whiskey could be made with many, many grains, more than is allowed today, percentage-wise. And many are arguing that we should, if we're authentic and true to who we are as a nation of whiskey makers, we should be able to make whiskey how we used to make it and call it pot still whiskey. I don't disagree for 1 second that we should be able to make whiskey the way it used to be made. But guess what? We've always been able to make whiskey the way it used to be made. We just couldn't call it pot still whiskey. We could just call it Irish whiskey. So it just didn't fall within the 3 categories, malt, grain, or pot. Instead, it had just a catch-all category of Irish whiskey. So my question has always been to these makers, why are we spending so much time and money trying to get the definition changed for pot still whiskey, when we should just be worried about the marketing and reputation of Irish whiskey globally? I spend a lot of my time marketing Irish whiskey, talking about Irish whiskey and tasting Irish whiskey with American audiences. And the pot still whiskey definition is so hard to understand. And like I was saying to Gavin, really all pot still whiskey is, and could be with the expansion of the laws, is just a multi-grain whiskey. Now that's so easy to describe, isn't it? If you had Irish multi-grain Irish whiskey, okay, so there's more flavor, I guess, as opposed to what people think is just one grain when they hear things like single malt or single grain, even though there's not just necessarily one grain. Single grain has both corn and malted barley, for an example. It's so confusing. And I wish that more effort had been put into simplifying how Irish whiskey be described, rather than worrying about whether a thing we could already make had the same title as it did 100 years ago. That's my rant, that's my soapbox, and everyone has a different opinion on it, but I think far too much time has been wasted on expanding the definition of pot still whiskey when we should have just gone out, made non-compliant pot still whiskey and just called it Irish whiskey, and that would have been fine. The government would have been happy. We'd been out there telling a multi-grain story. Alas, here we are. Okay. Daughter's only 5. She's too young for the whiskey. All right. Make sure she can't open corks or screw caps. Martin doesn't have enough wardrobes. I think I'm going to start a new business in whiskey wardrobes and whiskey shelves, and you'll be the first to hear about it. Brian, you raise a great point. Need more good whiskies to be available in 200, 350 and 500 mils. I couldn't agree more. In fact, make it even smaller. Why can't I get every whiskey in a 50 mil format? If you go to Scotland, it's far more common. Visited a great distillery in Edinburgh not so long ago, the Holyrood distillery right in the heart of Edinburgh. And they have samples of all their new make spirit available to purchase in the gift shop in 100 mil or I think maybe 200 mil bottles. Every batch they've ever made and every version of yeast they've used and grains they've used, you can buy versions of their new make spirit. And there are more distilleries that in Scotland that will offer up small bottles of their whiskey. I know that the goal of the distillery is to make money, and you make far more money selling a bottle for €100 than you do for 10. But if nobody buys the €100 bottle because they're afraid of what it tastes like, maybe you're better off selling them at 10. And that's really where I think 3 Drams should be adopted by more brands as a launch or as a vehicle for sampling. Every brand meeting you go into with large companies, they talk about this liquid to lips strategy and how nobody will buy a whiskey until they've tasted it. And for the most part, that's true. You'll take a chance on things you might be familiar with and brands you might be familiar with. But if you've never heard of the brand, you might not take a risk. You've all experienced that. As you walk past the shelves, you won't buy a whiskey unless you're sure. So I think they should all be available in smaller sample bottles. I know there's challenges in bottling, and you need a separate bottling line to create minis than you can full bottles. But certainly the large companies have access to small bottling lines. They do. And I think they should do it. More soapbox rants over. There's something else in the world of Irish whiskey I was going to talk about. There's a couple of festivals coming up this weekend in Kilkenny, and Wexford is the Southeast Whiskey Festival. There's probably still a chance to grab some tickets for that. And then in late March, you've got the Cork Whiskey Fest. You can Google Cork Whiskey Fest, you get the exact dates there. Those are 2 festivals that are coming up. There is a Celtic Whiskey Spring Fest in Dublin in early March. Is it March 9th maybe? In Dublin as well, a 1-day festival. And then there's one more thing. If any of you wanted to join me in Bushmills Distillery next month in March, we're hosting a 1-day behind the scenes experience as part of our Whiskey Bus. We have a 7-day experience where we're bringing guests all around Ireland for 7 days, Belfast, Dublin, Cork. We're opening up one of the days to the public, and that is behind the scenes in the old Bushmills Distillery. That includes the visit to the new Causeway Distillery that is not part of any tour. Nobody gets to see the Causeway Distillery. And we're getting a private tasting with Alex Thomas at Master Blender. It's going to be a great day. You'll find details of that on irishwhiskeyexperiences.com. And it's just a 1-day. We've got a bus going from Belfast and back, so if you can find your way to Belfast, no doubt we'll go out in Belfast that night for those who stick around. But if you're looking for something different to do and you've not visited Bushmills, you want to see it in a more private capacity, we'll have a private access to it on our tour. So check out irishwhiskeyexperiences.com if you want more information there. Aaron says it makes complete sense out of all of the out of the few hundred kits you sent out for this month, how many bottles of these three makers sold off tonight, especially gift for the Gab? So we have received reports from some of our makers over the past 12 months that north of 100 bottles of our product in some cases have shifted. 100 bottles. That can change the whole month for a brand. 100 bottles of whiskey. So when a brand leans into it and discounts or offers an incentive, or the price is so great, or the value just seems there, even if it's an expensive bottle, the value is there, the flavor is right, just getting people to try it. And our model, how it works with brands, is that we don't ask for them to donate all of the whiskey to us free of charge. We ask for the first 12 bottles to be donated. And that way that's their cost of the tasting. The brands don't pay a penny to be part of our 3 Drams. They just have to give us the first 12 bottles, and then we'll contribute to the cost of everything else. And we'll help cover the cost of the remainder of the whiskies that we need. The idea behind that is that if we were to grow to need 60 bottles from a brand in a month, you couldn't go to a brand and say, give me 60 free bottles, because who would do that? But instead, if you say, give us 12, we'll pay 48 of them. Now we're all winning. It makes a smaller margin for us, but the brand, we kind of share the cost of growth. And I just think more brands should lean into it. And I'll be knocking on a lot of doors now this year to try and get brands to come to the table and use us as a go-to-market vehicle, because it makes perfect sense to use us as a test market, to use us as a feedback loop, and to use us as a sales channel, which those that have done, I think, have benefited. Aaron and 3 of his friends have bought 7 bottles from Ardra just from tasting them here. That's all it takes, folks. I think it's just, we have to try it. And especially with brands we've never heard of before. And look, who can take a chance? We can't always be taking chances on €100 bottles of whiskey. We need to know that we're going to be able to finish the bottle, especially when you're hiding them in the daughter's cabinets or in the daughter's cupboards. Dram in a can is a great idea, says Gavin. It is, yeah. And Dram in a can, hugely successful. And again, I think that plays into a couple of great opportunities for a brand. One is transportation of a very light product, an aluminium can, 100 milliliters, more than just a shot, and it can still get through security. It's not glass, and also it's a sampling opportunity. If you like it, you might buy a whole bottle. The hinge bottling is a good example, says Martin. It is, of course. Gary says, any chance of getting Tyrconnell on board? No, there really isn't. Cooley Distillery doesn't really have any interest in things like this. There's no marketing being done at all for those products. Sadly, Tyrconnell being one of them. It's just not a thing where you're really looking for a brand that just they want the engagement. They want to deal with the consumer directly. There was a time, we've got a good friend who was a former brand ambassador for two friends, who former brand ambassadors for Kilbeggan and Tyrconnell, and they would have been front and centre in Ireland and the US. And those roles have been virtually eliminated for Irish whiskey. So sadly, their focus is not on this. But we're always, if any brand wants to come to us, and maybe I'll put out a push out there on social media and say, look, if you're a brand and you want to join us on 3 Drams for a sampling opportunity, please, we're here. And there's almost no cost. We often take delivery of the liquid in plastic IBCs, so kind of large 5 litre or 5 gallon drums where the brand doesn't even have to go to the expense of bottling. We can just take the liquid before it's bottled, and we can do the decanting. So we're trying to keep the cost low for brands as much as we can. Aaron, you'll have to check out our website. We have a great testimonial page on the website. And if you'd like to add your testimonial, you can send it to me anytime. I'll add it in there. The Hinch bottling is a great example, said Martin. Yeah, the Hinch one is a great example. There was more than 100 bottles of Hinch sold, which I was delighted to see. Brian says 2 Stacks just launched a new dram in a can this week. Polaris 4.2, great. Great stuff. I didn't make it to the whiskey cruise, but picked up the dram in a can for it. Yeah, so we had a dram in a can produced exclusively for the whiskey cruise. Gavin here is in the audience. Gavin had it, and it really went down well. And we drank it up to our waist, standing in the water in Virgin Gorda, the British Virgin Islands, drinking it. Tough old life, as tough as Garrett had it in France tonight, sourcing old Bordeaux casks for his wine. Okay, folks, so I think that's it for this week. Is there anything I've missed? No, you got your discount code. We'll send this out by email as well, those who haven't yet got it. or haven't yet ordered, we'll send this out by email. I'll also send out, we've got some bottles of our, you might have tasted, you might remember the Liberator grain and rye cask that we included as part of our tasting a few months ago. And we made that bottle available through Stories and Sips. We did an exclusive bottling. We have about 30 bottles of that left. I've just reduced the price on it by €20. It's a cask strength, single cask bottling for only €79. I'm going to send that as a link out to you. As a 3 Drams member, you get access to it. So if you have any interest in that, about 30 bottles of that left. I'll keep that price there now for the remainder of those bottles. So there's an offer there on top of tonight's discounts as well. So look, thanks for all your support. Bear with us on the technical side of things. It's both my nightmare and my waking hours thinking to get this thing right on the subscriptions and the payments in the back end. If we mess up, will you let me know? Will you message me? You have my email. You can find me on social media. Tell me what we're doing wrong. And I promise you, I'll own that problem and we'll get it fixed. And I know that ball has been dropped for a couple of you on just the perfect storm. You know, when one thing goes wrong, it keeps going wrong and we can't fix it. We're going to do our best to fix that. So if you have any trouble with any shipping or any logistics, everyone has the best of intentions in this journey on our logistics side. Lighthouse Drinks are a great partner. We have a developer working on the technical side of it. We will make sure you get your kit on time, even to Germany. We'll be shipping earlier next month for sure. All right. So look, thanks so much for all your support. And I'll see you after St. Patrick's Day, unless you join me in Bushmills, which I'd love to see you. Otherwise, I'll see you on the last Thursday of March. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and keep adding more bottles of whiskey to the daughter's cupboards. So long, everybody. Have a great night.